What if God is already tired of me? What if I've run out of grace? The sin that can't be forgiven is not found in the life of a wounded person crying in the dark because they didn't know how to do better. Every sin and blasphemy will be forgiven to mankind. The very fact that you're deeply concerned about having committed it is the strongest and most compelling clinical evidence that you have not actually committed it. Do I still have the desire to be transformed? The door stands wide open, grace is still fully available to you, and the God who designed you is waiting and ready to receive your story and rewrite your ending. There is a question that almost no one dares to verbalize out loud, but that thousands of people carry in their minds. What if God has already grown tired of me? What if I have exhausted my quota of grace? Because it is one thing to make a mistake, experience the weight of the error, and correct the course. But something completely different and much more draining is falling into the same pattern over and over and over again until shame makes you unable to pray. There comes a point where you feel that your own requests for forgiveness sound false, hollow, and hypocritical, even to yourself. It is in that state of vulnerability where the mind unexpectedly encounters one of the most deeply serious and misunderstood warnings in the scriptures, the concept of the unpardonable sin. This topic was not intended or meant to terrify those who are struggling with all their might to rise back up and rebuild their lives. The genuine and ultimate purpose of this experience is to awaken those who are becoming accustomed to living in a state of being emotionally anesthetized and numb, voluntarily silencing that quiet inner voice that invites us to sanity and restoration, to the point of completely losing the ability to hear it. To understand the true nature of this limit, first, we need to carefully examine and analyze the structure of our decisions. Not every time we say no to the will of God does it arise from within our complex internal world and spiritual landscape. There are negative responses that are born from paralyzing fear. There are wrong decisions that arise from pure ignorance or from a lack of emotional tools. And there are falls that are the direct result of human weakness, of that internal battle with impulses or wounds from the past that we have not yet learned to manage. None of these scenarios qualify as the unpardonable sin. There exists, however, another category of rejection, a much deeper, conscious, and deliberate no. It is the posture of one who decides by an act of will to close the door to learning, to reject any type of confrontation, and to shield themselves against the truth. It is the psychological state of someone who not only commits a significant error, but also builds an elaborate related narrative to justify their actions and behavior, going to the absolute extreme of completely warping their perception of reality, calling good evil and evil good, just to protect their own fragile sense of pride. This is where we enter dangerous territory. The sin that has no forgiveness is not found in the life of a wounded person crying in the dark because they didn't know any better. This condition's typically found in the very core and heart of one who, standing before the most evident light, deliberately, consciously, and stubbornly decides to hate the light because they deeply prefer the comfort of their own shadow. That is the exact scenario where Jesus introduces this warning in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke when speaking of blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. It's fundamental to note that Jesus didn't utter these words before an audience of people distressed by their weaknesses. He wasn't speaking to a confused disciple. No, Jesus had just performed an extraordinary and undeniable miracle. He had fully restored sight, speech, and freedom to a man who had been severely tormented by evil. The clear evidence of the restoration of mental and physical health was right there, exposed before everyone's eyes for all to witness. It wasn't an abstract theological theory. It was a therapeutic and historical fact. However, the religious leaders of the time, in order not to back down and to protect their status, devised a perverse explanation. This man casts out demons only by Beelzebub, the prince of demons. They weren't suffering from an honest intellectual doubt. They were asking a humble question of discernment. They were witnessing a work of liberation, love, and health, and they decided to label it as a satanic work. Jesus heals, and they decide it's destruction. Jesus breaks chains, and they claim it's the work of darkness. By doing this, they voluntarily block the only escape route they had toward their own sanity and salvation. If we analyze how our psychological configuration works, we understand that the human mind has an amazing capacity to habituate to stimuli. In the field of behavioral science, we know that when we are constantly and repeatedly exposed to an alarm and consciously choose to ignore it, the brain will eventually filter it out and let it pass simply to conserve its valuable mental energy. The same thing happens on a moral and spiritual level. The conscience doesn't become seared overnight. It becomes desensitized in layers, in a systematic way. It starts with a minor, seemingly harmless justification today, a deeply uncomfortable truth you decide to ignore tomorrow, a conviction you decide to completely silence with a distraction, a call to conscience, to consistency that you continually postpone for some distant future. At first, the internal contradiction causes anxiety and discomfort, but if you repeat the defensive behavior enough times, the nervous system and the soul become accustomed to it. The self-critical pain disappears, the alarm shuts off, and the heart becomes completely numb. That is the true danger of the unforgivable sin. It's not that God revokes his love in a strictly punitive manner. It's that human beings have the capacity to gradually atrophy their own souls through self-deception, becoming completely immune to the influence that could rescue them. Jesus' warning is exceptionally clear and direct, but notice how it begins. Every sin and blasphemy will be forgiven to men. The statement opens with an ocean of mercy that we should never overlook. God is not lurking in heaven looking for a technical pretext to disqualify you. Biblical history and clinical experience show us that divine forgiveness has an extraordinary reach. God forgave Peter's betrayal and cowardice. He forgave David's abuse of power, adultery, and crime when there was a genuine breakdown. He transformed Saul of Tarsus, a violent persecutor, into an agent of peace. God has the willingness and the power to restore any life story, no matter how twisted or shameful it may seem. The problem has never been a lack of resources and God's grace. The problem arises when the individual disables the only agent capable of guiding them toward restoration, the Holy Spirit. According to the scriptures, the Spirit's role is not to condemn or destroy an individual's self-esteem. His primary responsibility is to awaken a sense of clarity by demonstrating the reality of our condition and providing us with the necessary inner strength to return. Therefore, if a person insults the doctor, systematically rejects the diagnosis, throws the medicine in the trash, and claims that illness is health, The outcome is tragic. But the cause is not the absence of a cure, it's the rejection of the treatment. This is how the unforgivable sin works. It's unforgivable because it takes away a person's ability to experience metanoia, that deep change of direction and mindset. In my practice, I often see distressed people who tell me, "I'm afraid I've committed the unforgivable sin." The answer that I provide, both from a behavioral standpoint and from a perspective of faith, is consistently and invariably the same. The very fact that you are so deeply worried about having committed it is the most compelling and definitive clinical evidence that you have not actually done so. In the field of emotional health, we distinguish neurotic guilt, which only destroys and paralyzes, from functional guilt or restorative guilt. Functional guilt is very much like the sensation of physical pain, an absolutely vital biological warning signal that tells you that you've put your hand directly on the fire and you're starting to get seriously burned. If it really hurts, it simply means that your internal nerve endings are still very much alive. If you still feel a deep sense of discomfort and unease for your failures, if you experience a persistent and overwhelming longing to return, if the feeling of being far away from God makes you nostalgic, it means your soul is still burning brightly with a divine spark. The Holy Spirit is still working on your conscience. The real danger isn't feeling the weight of guilt and running toward shelter. The real danger is absolute moral apathy, walking through life, destroying your bonds and your spirituality without caring in the slightest. So the question you should ask yourself today, in the privacy of your reflection, isn't, will God still have the capacity to forgive me? The truly honest and transformative question is, do I still have the desire to be transformed? Because God's mercy isn't administered in droplets, nor is it offered with weariness. God doesn't look at the human being who returns and say, "You've already come too many times this week." The cross wasn't designed for perfect people who only make superficial mistakes. It was raised for real sinners, for stories shattered into pieces, for complex dynamics, and for realities we're ashamed to remember in public. God has the power to heal that which you don't even dare to confess in an intimate conversation. He can restore what you've hidden behind your professional or social masks for years. But His love is so respectful of your design, that He will never violate the freedom of your will. God persists, sends light, unsettles your comfort zone, opens doors, and awakens your mind, but He won't control you like a puppet. Don't toy with the voice that today is inviting you to take off those masks. Don't numb the restlessness you feel in your chest with easy explanations. Don't get used to living far from God as if that weren't dangerous. If today you feel the need to start over, do it. If your faith is weakened and your foundations shake, come before Him with what's left. Jesus left a promise that isn't a movable pillar. Whoever comes to me, I will never cast out. Do not allow shame to construct a barrier between you and restoration. Do not use your past failures as an argument to keep yourself at a distance in the present. Come just as you are today, with your doubts, with your setbacks, with your vulnerability, and with what you haven't been able to resolve on your own. The door remains open, grace is still available, and the God who designed you is ready to receive your story and rewrite your ending.